what's happening YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel so I can keep pushing out content. Right, so today I'm just going to talk about a home truths video, basically about van life. Yeah, so I've been living in my van now for literally like pretty much almost 4 years. And you know, people are like, Ashley, like, are you okay? Are you a tramp? Are you homeless? Like, are you this? Are you that? I'm just like, look, like, I've got no choice. Like, property's so expensive, right? And I can't get a place to the council because there's some formality you have to go through, and you have to be eligible as well. Yeah, so this is my only choice. Like, it's not ideal, like living in big car parks, supermarket car parks, or whatever car parks, because you know you've got obviously a constant battle with obviously parking fines, constant battle of where to park, where to pull up. It's the hardest bit about living in a van. It is like there is nowhere to park. Like, it is so difficult to just pull up and be left alone. But yeah, fundamentally, I have no choice. This is why I live in a van, because I have no choice. You know, I don't want to be living in a dodgy area, like not be happy and have nothing there. You know, have no connections. You know, whereas living in a van, like you can live in a nice area as well. But you know, like I said, I'm here to to talk about the raw truth of van life, and the raw truth is I had no choice and I had to live in a van. That's why I live in a camper van. And you know, until my situation changes, it's very difficult for me to get out this lifestyle. You know, it is challenging. It is challenging. I'm not gonna lie, it is challenging. You've got to be very versatile, and you've got to get through different types of adversity as well. You know, for example, like, you know, not having a shower and toilet on board constantly is a pain in the ass. And no, the biggest pain in the ass, right, is when it rains. When it rains, it is fucking nightmare, because when it rains, it's like, you know, you can't even go outside. Like, you can't even like open the back doors up and all this crap. It's just, it just makes everything twice as hard. Like, you have to. Sometimes, right, I'm literally trapped in the van, right, because I can't even get out the van because it's fucking like proper raining outside. So I don't even know if I can swear on YouTube, so I don't even know about that. So sorry about that. Yeah, so literally, it's always raining outside. So obviously, when it rains, obviously, like, you're like trapped in the van, so it's just a pain in the ass. So that's probably my personal biggest negative thing, like, that I hate about living in a van, is when it rains, it really affects you. Like, it's really hard because obviously you don't get any sunlight, so you can't charge anything up. You can't even go outside. Oh, it's just a pain in the ass. Um, but yeah, obviously, in terms of like the property crisis in England, you know, it's really bad. It's really really bad. You know, like, you know, I speak to loads of people on like a daily basis. Because obviously I play chess, and I go swimming. I've got a few hobbies, obviously, to help my mental health. And yeah, I just speak to people, you know, because I like to speak to people, and they just tell me about how hard it is. You know, like, you know, they pay £150 a month in council tax. In rent, they pay like £700 a month in rent. So already we're on like what, 850, and then yeah, and then they got to pay electricity, which is going to be at least £50 a month, and then they got to pay like TV, not TV, like internet. Yeah, so let's just say conservatively, it's almost £1,000 a month, and £700 a month now in rent is quite, you know, good value within the market. Like, who the fuck has £1,000 a month? You know, like, just like outgoers like that. It's crazy. You know, and then obviously if you drive as well, if you drive, because obviously like driving for me is the most expensive thing that I have to pay for, because I've got to pay for my insurance, and then I've got to pay for my yeah. So my insurance on this van is like £150 a month, because I think I had like a claim a couple of years ago, hence why it's that much. But yeah, I've got to pay £150 a month, and then I've got to pay tax, which is like £30. And then like, yeah, you got to fuel the van all the time, you know. So you can imagine if you're living in a property and you've got a vehicle as well, mate. I don't even know how they afford these things. Like, you've literally, like, I've done it before, right? You've literally got to be grafting every single day. You've got to be working every single day, grafting every single day to be able to afford that lifestyle. You know, that's not a way to live. That's not a way to live. You know, I don't know anyone who actually loves their job. Most people hate their jobs, right? And that is a fact. So if you're in that very small percentage where you love your job, you actually genuinely just love going to work, and you do it for free, then that's great. But you know, I don't want to like, you know, slave myself and work every day just so I can live. You know, most people work, right, to pay their bills, to pay their rent, right. That's why most people actually get up in the morning and go to work, right. So if you haven't got those outgoings, right, then theoretically you don't even need to work, right. You know, and this is why, right, so many people on benefits, right, because this is a much easier way of life, right. You get paid every month. There's no discretion. You know, it's just easier way of life, and I can see why so many people are on benefits and don't work, because working, it's just, you know, the thing is, like, the way I see it is, the more you level up in life, the more outgoings you've got to pay, the more pressure you put on yourself, the more burdens you put on yourself. You know, it's constant pressure. Like, I think the most happiest you can be is just live within your means, and don't necessarily have to earn loads of money, but just like live within your means. And yeah, I think that's just a more simple way of life. You know. But yeah, just getting back to the van life. You know, like I said, I have no choice but to live in a van. I have no other option because property is so expensive. And I mean, you could obviously potentially get like a static home because they're much cheaper to buy. But then problem with a static home is you've got to pay site fees with it, and they're expensive. And another option is if you get a canal boat, but with a canal boat you've got to keep moving you've got to keep moving the bloody boat every 2 weeks, and you've got to get like a mooring license. And if you just get a static like motor canal boat, obviously at like a little marina, obviously you've got to pay the site fees, and that's expensive. So it's like, you know, it's very hard to have a cost-effective lifestyle. It really is, you know. And I remember working like 40, 50 hour weeks sometimes, like back in the day, and I just remember how stressed I was. You know, it was just really stressful. I mean, my health was deteriorating because I was hardly getting any sleep. You know, I don't want to go back to that lifestyle, man. I really don't. And you know, I look at some of these house shares as well, and yeah, because I don't know if my subscribers know, but I'm from Hertfordshire, which is basically the outskirts of London, basically. Yeah, so like house shares around here are like, you know, 650 a month, 700 a month, and literally all you get, right, is just a room in a house share, right. You have to share the bathroom. Sometimes they have no living rooms at all, but if you're lucky, you might have a living room. You've got to share the living room. I lived in a house share before, right? And there was literally like there was literally 4 men living there, obviously, including me, right? And these two guys, right, would get up every morning about 5 a.m., right? Slam the door open, wake me up every morning, you know, so it's not a nice place to live. And, you know, like trying to use a kitchen, so like everyone wants to use a kitchen at the same time. So it's very hard to make any food, you know. I don't I don't want to be living in a house share. I don't want to be living in a house share, you know. But yeah, but you know, van life is tough though. If you are looking to live in a van, it can be tough, all right, because you've got to find somewhere to park where they can leave you alone, which is flipping hard in England. Um, yeah, and obviously you have to yeah, obviously you can't get any posts sent to you, so you have to just like use like friends or family to get post because you haven't got like an address they can get it sent. So that's something to think about as well. But I mean, to be fair, like most posts, I mean, who actually opens their letters these days? You know what I mean? Like, it's always bad news. So, yeah, like I think everything should be sent online now. It'd be so much easier, you know, just have correspondence online. But yeah, that's something to think about. It's like the address issue. Um, and yeah, obviously, you know, you want to have access to a shower and stuff like that. So yeah, you will need some sort of gym membership, stuff like that. So you can go for like showers and stuff. And yeah, obviously emptying your bins as well can be a bit annoying because you got to find, you know, bins like communal bins, or sorry, like bins in the car parks or whatever you can find to like get rid of rubbish. And obviously you're not going to just have one or two things. Sometimes you've got big bags of rubbish, so you have to like find, you know, like big bins to get rid of them, which can be a pain in the ass. So you know, all this stuff you've got to think about, you have to consider. You know, it's much easier if you're just obviously a single person, If you're a couple and stuff, obviously I can imagine that'd be a lot more tough. But you know, it's some people make it work. Some people make it work, but you do have to be wired a certain way to live this lifestyle. You've got to be quite tough, vigilant. You have to be tough. You know, you have to be very tough because it can get hard. You know, there have been times, I'm not gonna lie to you, where I have been heavily depressed. It's been fucking hard living in the van. Like, you know, I'm just thinking to myself, like, you know, like what, like surely I'm better than this. Surely I can get out of this, you know, this life. But then I look back and think, well, I was going to be paying all that money every single month and not enjoying myself. So that's why I don't really make the change. But yeah, you know, van life is hard. Like I said, I had no choice but to live in the van. But yeah, these are just some raw truths that I just wanted to speak about. If you think at all it was interesting, or if you like my content, then yeah, hit the subscribe button. Peace.